Hello, welcome back to my haunted library. It's Regina. Hope you're having a lovely summer. I've been pretty busy, just taking care of the dogs, working, and writing, of course. Haven't really done any major trips yet this summer. Had a couple day trips. I was in New York last weekend, which was very nice. I hadn't been in the city for, well, probably since before COVID, I'm thinking. So it's been a while. And just kind of driving through Central Park was really nice. And I was up on the Upper West Side. And yeah, that's about it. But it was nice to get out of town at least. So I'm here today with a long overdue V.C. Andrews review discussion, more than a review, on the Logan series. Now, these are, I did one on Melody, so I'll attach this one to the playlist. So this was the first in the series. I did enjoy this one. It's not my favorite series, to be honest with you guys, and there were some parts about it that I really enjoyed, and some parts that I found kind of boring. But I'm not finished yet. I still am about 100 pages away from finishing the last book in the series. And like a lot of these V.C. Andrews series, I find the latter books just more enjoyable. I feel like they're almost more melodramatic, like the going back and telling the mean grandmother figure's story for some reason is always much more over the top. And this is what I love about V.C. Andrews, Andrew Niederman's V.C. Andrews series. Let me just get myself together here. The first book, Melody, of course we have very similar characters, and that's why a lot of times I feel like maybe I get confused about some of the remembering this series to the next, because they're so similar. In the setting's always different, but the characters are pretty much the same. But there's something just compelling about them. So I'm just going to go through each one a little bit, and I will have some spoilers, and I'll probably get some of the plot points wrong because it's so involved. The family relationships in this one, I felt like I needed a flow chart for real to keep it straight. And as I was trying to remember who this person was related to, I kind of came upon the discovery that I didn't really care that much, that it wasn't that important to the story, or it didn't drive the story the way maybe some of the other earlier series did, because I was it was old territory perhaps, or just it wasn't that compelling. The later books were very good though. And like I said, I'm almost done Olivia, the last one. Anyway, so Melody, just to recap, is a teenager from a poor mining town in West Virginia. She lives with her mom and her dad. Her dad dies, and her mom goes way off the rails. Now, her mom's name, it's a weird spelling. I'm going to pronounce it Haley. It might have a different pronunciation, so I'm going to write it here. If you know, spell it out phonetically for me, please, in the comments below, if anyone is familiar with that name, because I honestly have never seen that name spelled that way before. I think it's Haley, though. Her mom is kind of the Fanny character from Heaven, where she is a very flighty, narcissistic egotist who doesn't really care that much about her daughter, is more into her own ego and satisfying that. And when her husband dies, it's sort of like she just kind of doesn't really seem to care. She runs off with this guy, Archie, with whom I believe she was already having an affair. I might be wrong about that. I don't remember. It was a while ago when I read that first book. But she drops Melody off at the family home, the Logan home in Cape Cod, and takes off for the West Coast to go Hollywood and become a big movie star with Archie, who's a total sleaze. Later in the series, he becomes even more of a sleaze, and it's kind of a fun character. And I liked that part of the series, the mother dynamic, and I'm talking about the whole series now, between Melody and her mother, Haley. I felt like that had more of a compelling relationship that kept me invested, rather than Melody trying to discover who her father was. I don't know if that's just such an old trope. Like, I want to discover my real father. It just felt like I didn't care. You do find out, and it was very anticlimactic when you do find out toward the end. It kind of goes through a process of elimination of who her father is not, but it's just not that interesting. Anyway, so in the second book, Heart Song was my least favorite of the series because it's more about Melody's life on the Cape, all of the family situations, her budding relationship with Carrie, who may or may not be her cousin at this point, like first cousin, because she doesn't know who her father is. Carrie has lost his twin sister Laura. So when Melody comes in, she's similar in age. Carrie's mother is in such a state of grief, her name's Sarah, that she almost pretends that Melody is Laura, sets her up in Laura's room, encourages her to wear Laura's clothes. That whole aspect is very Gothic. That's straight out of the Gothic playbook. And it would even include in a true Gothic story, like the ghost of the daughter who drowned. That was very interesting. It wasn't as developed as much as maybe it should have been, but that was very interesting. But the Carrie relationship, to me, he just was not. A lot of times these male love interests who are somewhat related to the protagonist, the heroine, just maybe it's just because I'm older and I'm looking at that, I'm looking more like as a protective mother towards this girl that just, if there's a boy who peeps at his twin sister while she's getting dressed through a knot hole in the floor, maybe you don't want to date him. It's just one of those things. He's just too weirdly obsessed and not the nicest character. I mean, I guess he has some good qualities. Let's put it that way. So it really gets into their relationship. It gets into this man called Kenneth Childs, who is Haley's ex-boyfriend, who is the son of a judge in the town. There's like a lot of these different secondary characters like that. And he was an interesting character too, but the idea was that he may or may not be Melody's dad because he was her mother's lover. And he's this artist who lives on the Cape and kind of is a bohemian. He has this hippie girlfriend named Holly, and I did enjoy her character. She stopped by and kind of gives Melody a different outlook on life and shows her a more open-minded type of lifestyle and personality that is kind of a breath of fresh air, I must say. Little May, the little Carrie's younger sister who's deaf, she's a sweet character, but she doesn't really have a lot to do through the whole series. I was hoping that she would have a meatier subplot, but she really doesn't do much other than be sweet. And the idea that this is based on music, it all has Heart Song, Unfinished Symphony, Music in the Night, Melody. There's not a lot of musical theme in this other than Melody plays the fiddle because she's from West Virginia, I guess, but she doesn't really seem to be passionate about music. She just seems to kind of whip out the fiddle and play at parties, and everyone says how great she is, but it doesn't seem to be something she really loves. The fiddle just kind of appears. It's a little underdeveloped, I have to say. So Heart Song kind of blends into Unfinished Symphony, which is the next book. Oh, I forgot this major plot point. So huge spoiler. I believe it is the end of Heart Song when the tragic news comes that poor Haley was killed in a car accident. So Haley's dead. Everyone's sad, except I think it's at the end of Heart Song. Melody's friend from West Virginia, I forget her name, sends her a catalog, like a woman's fashion catalog, with Haley modeling in it. It looks just like her. It could be her secret twin, maybe just someone who looks like her. But Melody has to find out, so she leaves Carrie, who's very heartbroken, and they do kind of fool around a bit, I have to say. And it turns out they're not actually first cousins. I think they're third cousins, so that's okay, right? I guess. I never found any of my third cousins that attractive, I have to say, thank goodness. But when we were kids, growing up in the country, the only people our age were cousins, second and third cousins. So I can see where it happens. But Anyway, Melody takes off for California. That whole section I loved. I have to say, that whole part of was one of my favorite parts of Melody's story, because she flies out to Hollywood. She gets bamboozled by some guy who convinces her to carry a suitcase full of drugs onto the plane. So Melody just misses getting into terrible trouble with the police. That's not really developed, but it kind of shows how naive she is. And I think that that device has been used for several other heroines in these different series. And Dorothy is Holly's older sister, completely different from Holly. She's not a hippie. She's this very elegant Hollywood lady married to this rich older man, and she just likes to go shopping on Rodeo Drive, and she's, perfectly coiffed, a facelift every 5 years, and she's sort of like a real housewife of Hollywood. And she kind of takes Melody under her wing and wants to dress her up and buy her clothes. And this is what drives me crazy. It's like, why don't you want to go to Rodeo Drive and buy clothes, Melody? Come on, I would be the first in line. Instead, she's like, no, I have to find my mother. The Melody character is a little bit too good to be true, which can make her a bit dull. Anyway, so when she's out in Hollywood, she does find, lo and behold, she finds Haley living in this kind of rundown apartment complex, something that you will see a lot when you're in Hollywood. And I spent some time in Hollywood when I was a teenager and also when I was older. And I love it out there, I have to say. I love it. I've written short stories set in Hollywood. I'm not sure I'd want to live there, but it's great. And I love David Lynch films about Hollywood, like Mulholland Drive, and I love Hollywood noir stories. So yeah, I'm very into that. So I was lapping up that part of the story in Unfinished Symphony. It was my favorite part of Melody's story. So Melody goes to Hollywood, and she does find her mother, of course. Haley's real. She's alive. She's still living with Archie, although now she's changed her name. She's now Gina, and Archie's name is Richard, and they're trying to make Haley a big star. Of course, she's not doing very well. Richard is, she's really under Richard's thumb, or I'm just going to call him Archie. She's under Archie's thumb. He's taking all her money. He's using her. For some reason, she's enthralled by this sleazy guy. Of course, Melody sees right through the whole situation. Haley doesn't want anyone to know that she's old enough to have a daughter Melody's age, so she pretends Melody's her sister. Archie then tries to set up Melody as an actress. Of course, he sends her to a porn audition, or a porn set. That whole section was so much fun that when Melody decides her mother is really not worth having a relationship with and flies back to Cape Cod, I was very disappointed. Of course, Carrie is really happy to see her. She decides to move in with her grandmother, Olivia. And Olivia is your typical V.C. Andrews grandmother. She's rich, she's powerful, she wears her black dress and her pearls, and she is judgmental of everyone, and she rules the whole family with an iron fist. And she's going to take Melody in and teach her how to be a proper lady and how to get along with the family, how to be a great Logan. But my favorite of the series so far, and I'm almost done the last book, there are 5 books in all, is this one, number 4, Music in the Night. It has a beautiful cover too. And this scene is actually depicted in the book, and I love when they do that. And I love the blue. And I love Laura. She's a great character. I feel like Melody is just too perfect and therefore too boring. Laura is a passionate young woman, and she's beautiful. She's independent. She's Carrie's twin sister. And yes, he has a sleazy obsession with her. But she falls in love with this boy named Robert, whose family, they are not social equals to the Logans. They own a hotel, which seems pretty cool to me. But according to the old families on the Cape, these two are not supposed to get together. So the one who's really against this relationship, of course, is Olivia. because she controls everybody in the family. She's determined to break these two up. So Laura and Robert are fooling around so they can make love in private, and that is when disaster strikes. And that scene, that is what happens, the drowning, I'm going to put it in quotes because it's really not quite what it seems, was stupendous. That whole section was unbelievable. And then Olivia comes in with her machinations and really gets evil. And I don't really want to give away what happens there because it's really, really good. I feel like this book could be a standalone. I think I gave this one 5 stars. It was really good. I might even reread this at some point because I just loved it. The whole story about what happened to them had me breathless. I mean, there's nothing like a shipwreck, you know? It was really, really good. I really loved this character of Laura. She was really living through her passions. And it has that triangle with her and Carrie and Robert. And the two of them, Carrie and Robert, there's parts in the book where they kind of see eye to eye. All of it was just very entertaining, really good story, and a great standalone. So, yeah, I highly recommend this one. Not to say you shouldn't read the whole thing, but some parts were rather tedious. So I'm almost done. The last book in the series, Olivia. I'm really enjoying it. It goes back into the evil grandmother story, like most of the V.C. Andrews stories will cap the end story going back in time. And speaking of going back in time, I haven't watched the latest Lifetime movie on Flowers in the Attic. I think it's called The Origin or Origins, but I will watch it. I plan to watch it this week. I may even watch it today. And I will mention it in my next review when I recap the Logan series with Olivia. I'll talk about it then. So let me know in the comments below if you've read any of the books from the Logan series or if you watched the new Lifetime movie on Flowers in the Attic, the origin story. I would love to hear your thoughts. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for stopping by my haunted library, and I'll see you soon. Bye.